Savidya, I'm signing in, and we are continuing what we are discussing for a while now. And this is the last video of that particular series. So, if you don't know what we have done on this series around expiring items list, you should go ahead and watch the previous videos. I'll add the link to the video of the first comment, as well as you'll see something here as the video is playing. So, quick recap of what we have done till now. We have enabled item expiration on in Business Center. And following that, we created a report to list down item expiring, let's say, in a week, in a month, and all. Then the next video, we try to email that list via Business Center with the attachment of the report that we created in the previous video. And the last video, what we are going to do is we are going to schedule that code you have done in the last one so that it runs from job queue as for the frequency and with some parameters into it. So let's get started. So before we get into it, we are going to schedule the report via job queue. So let's search for job queue. When you go to the job queue entries, this is the place where you can schedule certain jobs, which runs on a schedule that is defined by you as a administrator. How you do that? You click new, and here you select either a report or a coordinate to run. The ID of that object, report or coordinate, in the description of that object, the start date time, job queue, and the status will remain on hold till we started. So to change the status from on hold, you can set status ready. If there is a job which is already ready, you can set that on hold if you want to make some changes. And if you are testing, then you can do a run once and for now. If there are errors, you can see them in the show. There are some other parameters which we are going to use in this video, which is the parameter string. Now, it's a text string that can be passed as a parameter by the job queue when it is run. We'll see how that we can use that. And then if you are scheduling a report instead of a code unit, then you can define, let's take an example to kind of explain to you. Let's say 3006, yes. Then if it's a report, you can preset some filters on that request page. You can say, oh, whenever this report runs from job queue, I only would like to show shipment, and then I would like to filter it for these positions invoice, or maybe for certain customers, what you need. And then you OK it, and that options kind of saved inside the job queue. And whenever the job queue will run, it will respect the filters that you have applied on the request page. Then you can choose what kind of output you want. If it's in Excel, Word, PDF, print, or none. If it's a print, then you can choose a printer from the available list of printers you have. If you're on Business Central Cloud, then remember that that directly will only work with the email printers and other type of printers so that it supports printing directly on that. And then the last and the important tab is when you want to run it. Do you want to run it on a particular day or on multiple days? You can set that. And then you can define at what time you start, at what time it ends. Uh, Between the start time and end time, if you want to run it multiple times, what would be that number of minutes in between? And then it will run based on that. And then this is the formula to calculate the next date. So if you're trying to, what's the formula that you would like to use to calculate the next running schedule of it? I hope people know it. If you don't, let me know. I'll maybe dig deep into it in a separate video. But this video is not for this. So let's delete this and we'll go into PS Code to see what changes we'll have to done in our code to support this. The repo, this repo is available on GitHub. So you can always refer the GitHub repo. That's there. Let's go into our expiring items. And then we have this code unit, which as of today, sending that email by calling this function from action. But that is not the idea. So what we are going to do is we would like to define how, what is the period that you would like to run it for. Let's say for a week, or maybe there is a separate set of people who would like to see it once in a month. Now, doing that via code and trying to manage it like we have done here, to kind of hard coding the date formula, can be a little bit annoying that every time you have to call it available, make changes and all. So what we'll do is we utilize what we saw in the job queue, one parameter, which is the parameter string. So anytime a job queue, sorry, an object that need to run on a job queue or in a table that need to add the table number into that folder. There is a property called table number, and you can set it to table that. Okay, job queue ID. What happens with this is the on run trigger now understand this table, and anytime this code will run from the job queue, all the parameters or all the details of the job queue will be accessible in this method, on run method. So just to change this, I will make it. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to define certain parameters into the job queue that we get, and we will utilize those to filter out or to change the behavior of our code. What we are going to say here is we are going to say that, let's say the user doesn't know it. So for him, we make sure that the record, which is job queue entry, and you can access all the fields here if you look at it. So you can play around with other fields if you get. The very common one is parameter string. And the parameter string is blank. Maybe user didn't know it and just schedule it. Then show him an error message, which will be displayed. Something goes wrong, saying parameters required for the job queue. And what are the parameters? Then you can define to help him or her. So we'll define that once we know what the parameter is. Now, parameter is a text string. If you are looking for multiple things into it, then you will have to decrypt that parameter string in a way. So what we'll do is we'll create a method called decrypt of the parameters. We'll pass the parameter string into it. What this will do is the way we are sending it, it will we know it because we are building it. So we will decrypt that. Now let's assume uh, let's let's identify what we would like to send. So let's say the one thing which is very hard coded here is the date formula that we are going to assign to the report. So the first thing that we want from the parameter is formula. The second thing which is hard coded here is the sender name, which is sending it to this email ID in this case. So the second thing we need is sender name. And let's say we also send the CC email. If the CC email has a value, it will send email CC to that recipient. Otherwise, it will just send it to the tool person. Now, there are different ways to handle it when you set it up in your client. But for a code to understand what our logic will be, we surely need to define a pattern to it. So what we are going to say is the format will come like this: a formula, a colon, and then an email ID, which is sender name, colon, and email ID. Now, where semicolon is acting as our field separator more or less. You can define any other separator if needed. It's not mandatory to write colon or semicolon in this case. You can write anything as you. It's up to you as a developer how you want to define that. So that's between you and your customer understanding. Both. So let's assume we're using this and we'll play around with it if needed. So the first thing we need to do is break this big string into three different parameters. The other thing that you need to remember that the only maximum value that this can support is 250 character. So you can't just think loud. You need to be very specific what you are asking for. Let's say if you are asking for two emails in the two address, then colon cannot be a separator because that is used as this. Maybe then use a separator like plus. Let's see. Or maybe use a separator like colon instead of semicolon. That's again up to you. So it's exactly up to the user or the developer what separator he or she would like to use. Now, traditionally, people who are coming from the app and say, oh, now I'll have to do a copy star, identify the length, and on. And that's where I guess we kind of have a very rigid mindset of being an app developer. But we should always start utilizing what's new in the product. So let's see what happens when we attack this product. New options, which is the dates, end with, index of, valid, remove, replace, a split. That's a split. Maybe this will do some magic. So let's see what the split is. When you do a split, it says, you can give me a separator and I'll return you a list of text. The list is a new data type if you don't know. But there are more overload to it. What are the other overloads? The other is give me a list of multiple separators if you have. And I'll again return you a list of text. What is the third one? Give me a list of characters to separate, and I'll again return you the list of text that I identified based on the split logic. The best one that suits our need is the first one, where we give it a separator and it'll return us a list of text. Okay, so let's try to split this. And let's assume that we are utilizing the separator as code, not all of it. That's it. Now this will return a list of text. So let's define a variable spirited parameters of type is of text. Sorry, yes, list of text. Now this is a discussion for some day, other day, if you want. How you leave the list and all. But right now, let's put it this way. Now, as soon as the parameters come into it, it automatically splits it based on looking at the colon sign. Now, we need to break this or assign will come into splitted parameters into these three more or less very. So let's create them. Uh, let's say we have the formula and then there's a formula. Then we will do possibility text area and then text area. Now let's start assigning values to it. We know this is the pattern. At this point, it should be something like this. Let's say. So the splitted parameter index 1 should contain this. The split parameter index 2 should contain this. And the 3 should contain this. Or else. So date formula is need to be evaluated. So what we do is we also need to check that maybe the parameter string that's coming from the user, from the job queue, can be incorrect. So we need to keep that in mind. So we'll say What we are evaluating? That data calculation is what we are getting from split parameter. How you do that? You do that based on get. Well, see what options are there. First one is give me an index and I'll give you a result as parallel. The second one is give me index and I'll return you text. That's what we want. So the index is 1. So based on this, it will evaluate it. But if it does not evaluate, then what? That means there is something wrong. There might be user instead of writing one D would have written in C, which will not evaluate. So if it does not evaluate, it will surely throw an error message. If it is wrong, user will get error and it should be understandable by user. So let's assume the first one is done. What is the second one? The second one is the email recipient, which is a text. So we don't need to evaluate it. So what we can do is read the text or get, but this time we use a different type of get. And there's a reason behind that, which is I'll tell you the index and the result. The index and the result. It's an index and result. So let's use this one. We'll say the index is 2 and the result that you're looking into it goes to email. Now, why we did that is because again, in this way, returns a boolean, right? It returns a boolean when we call this get, which is the boolean. So if because it can happen, the user can pass this, but this. In that case, the splitted parameter index one will be empty and will not be able to kind of scan it. So you need to make sure that there is something on index 2. Maybe user just this in the file. In that case, you should show an error. Otherwise, get will throw an error like it is empty. So we can say if it gets it, which makes sense, then do something. What we need to do is an email address. So we also need to make sure that the email address is valid. How we do that? Let's go to local management. Let's see. Yes. My spelling should be wrong. So let's try. Okay. We need to verify that if it gets it, is it actually an email address or not? Not a valid, but it just checks for email things, right? And there should be a check valid email address. And then we can pass. We get it. What if it doesn't get it? If that's not the case. Then again, a genuine error. Let's copy this. Put it here. Second parameter should be it. Let's see. But in the third one, it's optional, let's say. If user provides the third email address, great. If he or she does not provide the CC address, that will be okay. What we'll do again is we will check that if in this case, if he is get and get itself an email CC, that means it has a value. And if it is empty, it can be empty. Right? Email CC2 is empty, then do nothing. But if it is not empty, then surely validate that it is a valid email address. This we have done more or less. We don't need an error message in this case because it's not mandatory. Normally mandatory to guide first two parameters. And once we have done that, let's keep this because we will be flying somewhere else also. Let's change our procedure. The one being here changes to cal formula, okay, which also means that I don't need this value. I can just completely eliminate this, which also means that this level goes out because now it's generic. How you want to get it. Next use of the email recipient, which will have to go up. And so instead of this certain email, use this. The other thing that we may have got is the email CC. Let us check email CC. Then let's add the CC. Uh, CC, then get it from. Sorry, email CC2. That way, if there is a CC address specified, it is CC it to that user. Now here, one more thing, the last thing that we were doing is in the error of parameters are required, we also should define the package. Because if user gets an error, we don't want him to call the developer and tell him or her that this is the format that's needed. It should be readable so the user can read it. So what we want is we want user to have an understanding of it. So let's do a calculation, which will introduce a line break and then add several ingredients. The format is, let's say, formula, then it's supposed to be colon as we are discussing, and then there should be ingredient two, and then colon, and then system. Again, we also need to tell our user that the last parameter is optional, so we can say CC is optional. Okay. Now, this does not understand it because I tried to break it in multiple lines, so it's not understanding it. So let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. This, and you substitute string. Makes sense. So let's make it one single line. Simple. Already have the escape character. So we'll get lines into it or the spaces into it. We just need to make sure that this looks that one single element. So if user specifies no parameter, that will show him if the parameter should look like. And if he or she specifies the incorrect one, then that kind of gets an issue. So before we move further, I guess we did add somewhere a customer's add a bit, but let me try this one so that small JSON. On customer list, we added this action. And you might not remember it. So the best way is to change this method now because it's being handled internally to local. As soon as you do that, this action breaks and you're supposed to see over now. Just did a test in the last video. That got removed, this got added. And if everything goes good, it should be able to send out an email based on the what parameters we have set. So why waste time? Let's publish this and let's give it a try. How things go. So with this, you will be able to schedule the job queue as per your need, and You might create multiple job queues for multiple recipients. Maybe somebody's interested to look at it once in a week. Maybe somebody's interested in looking at it once in a month. So you can just change the property of parameter and the job queue will start behaving as per your parameters. So that gives you a little bit flexibility into how you would like to manage your notifications more or less. So let's search for job queue entries. Uh, The object that we are dealing with is a code unit. The numbers are up to code for 2005. Let's copy that. 2005. But then operating the command. To begin with, just for testing, we will not define any parameters. And because I'm not doing it for the sake of scheduling, so I'll just run it once, foreground, to see what happens. This is going to tell you that it is just one time job on the foreground we want to continue. Yes, and it tells you the exact error message that you had. If you actually schedule it and run it, you'll get into the job queue log entries with the same error message that I need in this format. Sounds good? Let's try it out with basic format. Let's say I'll say 1 week. That's it. Nothing else. That satisfied my first condition, but it did not satisfy my decrypt parameter method. So let's see what happens now. Or maybe let's do it ABC method. Let's say that's it. Yes, and since and then the first parameter should be in formula. Okay, I know. So let's do let's test it out. Yes. The second parameter should be an in. Okay. So let's do something wrong. Okay, let's see what happens. The first parameter should be a rate formula because it did not find the right character to split the string. So let's use the right character. Right? Now it says the email address this is incorrect. So give me the right email address. So all our validation that we have applied are kind of running as is. Now in this case, at this point, if I run it, it will run because the CC is an optional. So let's run it. Yes, it seems to be done. Success. You should see an email coming up. I already did, which is here. Similar email as we had the last time. This is the report on port 70. Okay, now let's come back here and change this to, uh, let's say, weeks. And add at this point, I should get a different email and I should also get using the wrong split. Okay, have it change that and it should be 2 weeks in time. Let's go back. So send icon. Let me see it. It did went to post on my gmail.com, CC into my another email ID, and this time I got lost to 424. That means my date formula parameter is working. My other parameter is working. Now, based on your need, as for the different recipients, you can say, oh, anyone who needs it in 1 month are these people in 260, and they will be receiving it once in a month or monthly Sunday or Monday. You can set it up. But if somebody needs it daily, you can just create another instance of the file in this case and set the different formulas as well. One more thing that you can do here is you can have the subject line customized because now you know the formula, right? The other thing to note, it is not mandatory to limit yourself with, especially for the senders and CC email. It was just a demo. But just understand it. You may have multiple recipients, right? Which will run out of limit of 250 characters. So I highly encourage for these kind of situation, you might have a set of table that says for item expiration on a weekly notice. These are the people that you get on a monthly basis. These are the people who oh, it's easy. But what I wanted to explain was that if there are simple scenarios, you can deal it with the parameter string, with the bubble, what we saw in the VS code, with the split parameter. Okay, so before I let you go, let's recap a few bit. We change the code with the addition of a property table number, which is set to job to entry. In the on dot trigger, we did some checks, is it empty or not? Then you try to split the parameter that came from the job queue using the list and the split command, which returns a single list of text. We did some checks and balances of the values that we have received. Once everything looks good, we set up a job queue, we define the parameter based on the split character that we have, and it just runs it from there. If you have any questions, either on job queue, either on list data type that we covered today, or anything else that we saw in this video, please let me know in comment of this video. I really just follow your comments. That helps us to be better on videos. So all your comments are great and they are always useful. That gives us direction that we are going. So please do comment if you learned something new in today's video. To share this video with your friends and colleagues. Uh, if you are new to this channel and landed up maybe from social media platform, make sure to subscribe to this channel. That helps us to keep working on your working. I'll see you tomorrow in the next video on some completely unrelated subject that I have here somewhere. So thank you. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.